Welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market, where today we're talking about this lovely plant here. Now, it's not in bloom yet, because the bloom is basically why people buy this, but I appreciate it for what it is. Its scientific name is Monarda didyma, which is not to be confused with certain wrappers. Its common name is Scarlet Bee Balm. Now, it's kind of amazing that it took me this long to get this bee balm, the for really real bee balm, the one that people most often buy at the nursery on one of these episodes. But we get to things as we get to things. It's in the Lamiaceae family, which means it's a mint. It also spreads by underground runners, which confirms it's a mint. Or underground stolons, I believe they are. Now, the name Monarda comes from the Spanish botanist Nicolas Monardes. The word didyma, specific epithet, means paired. It's a reference to how the flowers bloom in pairs, but not always next to each other, sometimes on opposite sides of the flower cluster, which is very cool. Now, it's native to eastern North America, Maine to Georgia, and all the way up to Ontario, Canada. So it's native as they come, which is great, because we need more natives out there in the landscape. Its USA zones are 4A through 9B, and it is classified as an herbaceous perennial, which means it dies back to the ground in winter. Its soil pH preference is 6.0 to 8.0, which is your standard herb set, and it prefers soil that is high in organics but also well drained, which potting soil in this case is what I'm using, and that's exactly what it wants. Its height can be 2 to 4 feet, and its width can be 2 to 3 feet. It is also known as bergamot, horse mint, and Oswego Tea, which we'll get to that last one in a second. Now, the plant is resistant to deer and rabbit damage, but the dead stems, which you shouldn't cut off, are used by native nesting bees. You can cut some dead stems to about 1 to 2 feet off the top of the plant and leave them, so that the native bees can nest inside them, and then when they disintegrate later on, you're fine to knock them down. Disintegrate in the following year, I mean. So, obviously, the flowers of this plant, with a name like bee balm, attracts pollinators, all kinds, but they're generally native, but also honeybees. I don't think this thing attracts wasps, but I'm not sure. But if it does, they're probably the solitary type, so you're less likely to get stung, which is a good thing, because nobody likes that. Probably except for that one guy in the back who that's his kink. Anyway, the flowers and leaves are edible and are used in flavor jellies, soups, stews, fruit salads, and teas. The name Oswego Tea comes from the fact that when the colonists were short on actual tea, they would use this plant's leaves as a replacement. Now, as I mentioned, it will spread by underground stolons. It is also very susceptible to powdery mildew, and thus, during the summer months while it's growing, you should avoid wetting the foliage unnecessarily. You can't help a rainstorm, but when you're watering, water the soil, not the plant. Lastly, the plant resin from this plant has been used to soothe bee stings, henceforth the name bee balm. That's where that actually comes from. Now, in my experience, this plant is gorgeous, and it comes in a bunch of colors. You know, you got the traditional red, which is what this is. You got pink ones. They've bred white ones. I don't think they've taken it out of the pink, red, white spectrum, but that also leads into the other type, because I have the other type of bee balm on premises, and we've done a video on it, and it blooms pink. Now, if you were to go inside here, if you ever had any doubt that this was mint, if you go inside here and you check the stems, they are in fact square, which is a common identification feature of mint. The foliage, when rubbed, is aromatic. It's not quite like any other member of the mint family. It's not minty, like peppermint or spearmint would be, but it is an interesting scent. And in general, this plant is fairly easy to grow. It requires, you know, regular irrigation, but not wet soil. Its fertilizer needs are very simple and easy to keep up with. I've yet to have a problem other than powdery mildew in the middle of summer, but a bunch of things get that, and you might be able to use nitrogen to get it to outgrow the damage. Might be. Otherwise, you can possibly treat with a fungicide, because powdery mildew is a type of fungi, but I'm leery on throwing fungicides and such, insecticides and so forth around all willy-nilly. That's up to you, but I'm just saying. So this is bee balm in a nutshell. Now I'll do an update later when it's blooming so I can show you the glory. But in the meanwhile, if you have any thoughts about the traditional bee balm that's sold in garden centers, Monarda didyma, please leave your comments in the comment section. If you have any thoughts about the other bee balm, I will make sure to link to the older video and maybe update it. See about updating it, uh, assuming the bee balm patch is photogenic at the time. The blog is updating, as I mentioned, and as always, folks, keep them growing, and see you next time.